Hello and welcome to a sunny Saturday morning in Florida recording edition of Obscure and Dead Reviews. I'm Azy.
I am Maus.
Yeah, you can see the daylight behind me. This is not our usual recording time. It is miserable. No one should be awake during the day.
You can't tell for me because I have a blackout curtain.
That is a blackout curtain. What ass is that, right?
No, man, you can't skimp on your blackout curtains.
I know, especially when listening to the album that we are listening to this week, this drippy, spooky, beautiful thing. So, the album that we are reviewing this week is Sevit, On the Edge of a Darker Place. It is a 13-track debut album from Dallas, Texas-based band Sevit, and they're a 4-piece. The damn thing's 13 tracks.
I thought it was 3-piece.
No. There's conflicting information, but if you go to the Facebook page and you look at the promo we got, it's 4 dudes.
Okay.
Yes. We were fortunate to get from their PR person an early release copy of this album, and it releases on Halloween. This review should be going up on the 28th. And I'm so happy we got an early release copy of this because the pre-order had 2 tracks available, If Now and When and Bleed, and I was just so taken by these 2 tracks. I usually don't pre-order albums because I've gotten bit in the ass on this before. And I'm just like, oh, wow, no, I hate this. Thank you. But no, I love this.
This is a great album.
Mm-hmm.
There are 13 tracks on this album.
Oh, I just got it. It's a goth number. It's releasing on Halloween. It's a goth number. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Their Bandcamp poetry describes them as pornography era cure. You will definitely hear that. You will definitely hear elements of that, and so much more. So I read that first, pornography era cure, recreating a decade of post-minimalistic, monologic, analog sounds with melodies, big beats, dreamy vocal hooks. So I go into the album hearing that, and right off the bat, first track you hear, Birds of Prey, which was released as a single in February, I believe.
You hear like a spooky A forest.
You hear a spooky version of a forest. So it sounds exactly like a forest. And what's weird is I was like, what is that? Like I listened to it and I was like, what is that? That sounds familiar, but I couldn't place it until you mentioned it. And now I'm like, click.
It's the way the melody is laid out, and it's kind of like
it's subtle.
It's but
kind of like down-tuned version of a forest. Beautiful nonetheless.
But it's a great lead-in track.
The whole album has these like lo-fi, far away vocals, so the vocalist can shout and get loud without it like sounding loud on the tracks.
Yep, the vocalist and guitarist is Jackie Legos.
Well, Jackie is amazing.
And it's not your stereotypical like goth baritone. His vocals kind of reminded me of a little bit of Robert Smith, a little bit of Fear Cult, a little bit of like Earth Calling Angela,
Sex Gang Children,
a little bit of Sex Gang
Cinema
Children.
Strange. I heard like all kinds of like higher pitched like death rock vocalists. Like I heard that
with like a very Robert Smith kind of like tightness that he does, if that makes sense.
And even though there are several songs on this album that are, they sound like 17 seconds or pornography, Robert Smith, but it's a little bit gothier than that, I think.
Right. So they do not describe this album as goth. They describe it as like dark noir, dark wave, cold wave, heavily influenced by goth. But honestly,
this is more goth than
I think that they can legitimately claim the goth tag on this because it feels like a continuation and something that's fully influenced by like the 40 years of music that we have rather than being like a rehash or like a revival of an older
a lot of the albums that are coming out now are like a rehash of those inspirations and they're not, it's
right,
not
like
very...
we have this awesome 90s revival sound going on right now.
Finally.
Yeah. So and that's great. But this feels like a continuation, especially of what we were hearing coming out of like the 2000s and 2010s. And moving up past that. And they do cite newer influences like She Passed Away and Cold Cave and Drab Majesty.
And I do love that you do have a mix of updated post-punk with dark wave. It doesn't stay in one vein.
No, it's like the second track, If Now and When, definitely had like post-punk vibes. Like now-ish post-punk vibes to me. And I thought that was really cool.
That track had an intricate layering of, you've got keyboard synths, your bass, your drums. You could hear all of the instruments happening.
The atmospheric elements. Yeah, the atmospheric elements that are like incorporated with the synths and like these synth strings are lovely. And the synth player is Cam B.
Well, there were several tracks that do sound very old school Cure. Old school as in like 1980 to 1982, The Cure.
Like One Perfect Day?
One Perfect Day is later.
Oh, we're starting at the beginning.
Well, not really. I don't want to have to go track by track, but I mean, we can't just jump straight to One Perfect Day. As Animals and Slave and Days in the Dark, all of those were very Cure type songs. They were enjoyable to me, but not as enjoyable because I was like, oh, it's another Cure song. I didn't really want to hear that so much, but when you listen a little bit more carefully, or maybe on the second listen, the instrumentation is beautiful. It's brilliant. It's tight. It's well written.
As Animals, definitely. And I like the guitar style on a lot of it because it's like a simple guitar. But that's actually why I didn't like Slave. That's my least favorite track. Yeah. Because the guitar was too much.
Yes, As Animals had like that traditional like post-punk, and then it got into like the death rock style guitars. But then Slave, it was too much of that. It was
a wall of guitar.
I put, the wailing death rock guitars was a lot. And then it had like that gothic bop going on. And those were just conflicting to me. So yeah, Slave was one of my least favorite. Days in the Dark, very well done, Cure era. What's original is the lyrics, that lyrical style there. But I wanted to see more of, while you have Cure influences, what else can the band do? And they absolutely delivered.
There are so many beautiful atmospheric elements on this, that like bells and the synth strings, and I mentioned them before, but all of these tracks have that, and it kind of like sets this like spooky tone, and reminded me of, like a lot of 2000s goth music where there was like so much like going on in that.
The airy songs in the middle, like the track A Light That I Can't Save.
No, you get it on Birds of Prey, you get it on If Now and When, you get it on Love or Madness, so it's on a lot of these tracks. Like these just like tone setting, like background, like synth atmospherics.
Very beautifully done. And can we talk about Bleed?
Okay, so Bleed is the anomaly track.
Bleed is crazy.
So they talk about having this like hugely analog sound. This analog sound, but there was so much going on in Bleed that
I loved it so much.
I've spun this track.
My God,
multiple times at this point.
They have these like demure synths in the background that are driving the song. While you're listening to it, you're like, this doesn't sound like it's Cure inspired. This is something entirely different. And then the chorus has like these synthy robot vocals.
The like distorted robot vocals. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, give me that. I don't know. I didn't ask for this, but
you love it.
Okay. And then there were chimes in the song.
Yeah, and these like very mechanical sounds.
And I'm like, what? What's that? What's this? It's like a cat being let outside in the patio looking at birds. I was like, what's that? Oh, what are these things? I love it. So wonderful sounds. Bleed just swelled my little heart.
I think it's definitely their dance floor song.
It definitely, I thought so too, but in a great, great way. There is another dancey one called Voices that I liked a lot. It had like a light Rosetta Stone kind of style. I felt that it had that like dancey dance floor vibe with an electronic drum breakdown in the middle that was kind of weird, but it went right back to the vibe.
I was trying to figure out if the drums were analog or programmed, because they have
programmed. Because you can hear the difference.
Sometimes I was like, okay, these are definitely programmed, and then other times I'm like, I'm not quite so sure, because they have a drummer, Brian J, listed in the credits. So, and it doesn't say programmer, it says drum. Okay, I guess drums isn't drummer. I don't know.
I'm always interested in the drums because, you know, a post-punk band is supposed to have actual drums. And darkwave often can mix both.
Same with goth.
Or can do just electronic. So it's interesting to see where they take it. And there are songs in this album that sound like natural drums. And I don't know, what do you call non-electronic drums?
Analog
drums, okay. And then there are other songs that sound like it's definitely like a programmed like drum tape.
Yeah.
Voices gets a little crazy with the drums, so it could have both.
It does, but it has that spooky guitar.
Spooky. Oh,
I wrote extra O's in my notes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And One Perfect Day.
Mouse, what are your notes for One Perfect Day?
The only notes I have about One Perfect Day is birds.
That is my exact notes. Birds!
Birds. So, you know, like the song before like fades out, it's a nice chill ditty, and then One Perfect Day starts, and I'm like, okay, this sounds like it's gonna be a Cure song, and I'm like, birds. There's just birds in the song. It's
just like words faded out, and then you just have birds, and you're just like...
Yeah. I was so distracted by the birds, I don't even remember what the song was. It was
their most Cure-like song, in my opinion. It was their most 80s track.
I did think it was dreamy and all of that, but I don't.
It was dreamy.
I don't know. I loved the last track, On the Edge of a Darker Place. I wasn't expecting it because One Perfect Day was a perfect way to end the album.
That's what I thought. I was just like, okay, this next track had better be a banger or like really great, because One Perfect Day would have been the best way to end this album.
It's a good end. Maybe On the Edge of a Darker Place is like a bonus track or something, because you could certainly end it with the track before. But, you know, it is a title track. It does remind me of the Cure song On the Edge of the Deep Green Sea because of the title. But, you know, he's singing about like slipping on the edge, slipping towards the end. And even though it's the end of the album, it's kind of beautifully sad because, you know, he could be singing about his life. It's special. It's a special song. And I guess I don't know where else it would have gone in the album.
Yeah, no, that my first impression was just like, nothing's going to be able to follow this song. And I was just like, and why they put the title track at the end? But it's exactly where it needs to be.
Overall, like even by the time I got to the end, I was way more impressed. Going into it, I was afraid that it was just going to be another homage to The Cure, which we've heard a million times. But beautifully done. There are tons of instruments showing off throughout the songs, and
there's so much influence that you can hear from so many different bands throughout the album.
You can really grab 5 of these tracks and be like, this is a darkwave band. You can grab another 4 tracks and be like, no, this is old school post-punk. But all of this mixed together, being able to do both of these, that is modern day goth. You should be able to do all of those things, and they deliver.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely in my top like debut albums for the year.
Is it really a debut album?
Yep.
Wow.
Right?
Well, their mastering was wonderful, which is amazing for a debut album.
Yeah, well, they are currently negotiating label support. Per our press release notes.
We know some labels.
Honestly, I would be very surprised if when touring opens up, if this band does not tour extensively, because if they want to, I'm pretty sure that they can get gigs. I want to book them in Tampa. Come to Tampa.
Well, they're close. Texas.
Dallas, that's like, what, 10 hours?
Yeah, that's actually pretty close.
It's drivable in a day. But,
I would not drive there.
Oh, I would.
No.
But
oh my God. Driving out of Florida is like a nightmare. Takes 10 hours just to drive out of Florida.
Takes 7, but yeah. I would be very surprised if they don't end up on the festival circuit. They're very good. So I expect
festivals return.
When festivals return. Exactly. We'll call that wood.
Well, good job, Sevit. Make sure to pick up the album.
Yes, and thank you again for the early release copy. It was most appreciated. It was an absolute treat.
Real quick, what was your favorite track?
My favorite track. Okay, so if it's not Bleed, I think that my favorite track might be a toss-up between Birds of Prey and As Animals.
Why would it not be Bleed?
Because Bleed is the obvious favorite track.
For me. Why, thank you. You know me so well.
It's a fucking awesome track. Yours?
It's Bleed.
If it's not Bleed, though, what is it?
Oh, if it's not Bleed, I like...
Are you going to say Voices?
Yeah, it might be Voices, but that drum breakdown, it's like, I couldn't dance through that whole thing. Probably Birds of Prey. Or If Now and When. I don't know. Birds of Prey, If Now and When, both very strong, and Bleed is my favorite. I also really, really love Voices.
Yeah, so when this album releases, so you're going to watch this on the 28th, and when this releases on Halloween, go listen to it, spend the hour with it, and come back and tell us how great it is.
Yes, exactly. Down in the comments.
Down in the comments. But you can go check out the 2 tracks that are up on Bandcamp, If Now and When and Bleed. Definitely some of the strongest tracks on the album. Highly recommended. And we'll see you next time. As always, we would like to thank our Patreon supporters for making this possible. I also want to start thanking our Twitch supporters, too.
Yes! Great.
Because it's keeping us, like, in the means to be able to, like, do these DJ sets, get the resources we need, get the tools we need to keep, like, making all of this content. And it is most appreciated. And we love you all. So subscribe, do the bell thing. Follow us on Twitter, because I'm actually posting there now. And we'll see you around.
Yeah, bye.